Welcome everyone, this is Ben with Swift English here, and today we're gonna look at some TOEFL reading, but this time we're focusing on inference questions. Okay, so before we begin exploring the strategies and the right method to solving or tackling this question type, FAQ, frequently asked question, are inference questions closely related to or similar to TOEFL reading rhetorical purpose questions or rhetorical function questions? The short answer is yes. The two share a lot in common, but there are some differences as well. So just to keep it brief and to the point, so both of them require that you apply critical thinking skills or critical thinking abilities. So when you do read the paragraphs in question, um, you know, just because you know what every word means, like it's not going to really help you. So that might be the case with some other question types, but just knowing the words, the separate meaning of the words isn't enough. It's not sufficient. So you really have to think deeper here and understand the big picture. And second, closely related to that is they're not going to explicitly mention information in the text. So I mean, yeah, sometimes you might be lucky. They might mention human activity in there. That's usually rare, but they might mention something kind of, means human activity. But even if you do scan for that word or phrase, it's not going to be enough to figure out the right answer, okay? So whatever the author's, message here is, it's going to be implied, okay? It's going to be indirectly kind of revealed to you, all right? So, now what are the differences between inference questions and rhetorical purpose, rhetorical function questions? Okay, so it's mostly related to the wording. That'll help you the most. So with rhetorical purpose or rhetorical function questions, they'll usually have the word why in them, like why does the author, mention this bit of information, something like that. And there are some other ways they formulate it as well. And you'll also notice that in the options or answer choices down below, they'll kind of have like a verb, like to suggest something, blah, 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 or to stress, blah, 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 to emphasize, da, 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 or to question whether this happened. And so they kind of have these kind of verb related questions in the beginning of the choices. Okay, now what about inference questions? Like how are we able to distinguish those? Okay, well, that's related to step one. So if you want to solve inference questions, we need to know what they are. So to do that, you just want to realize whether you encounter the key magical words in imply, infer, and suggest. So if you run into any of these three words, imply, infer, suggest, you know for a fact you're dealing with inference questions here. And you're not dealing with rhetorical purpose or even detailed factual or other question types. So that's the easiest way to identify it right away. So that is step one. You want to know if you do have an inference question sitting in front of you, and we do. We see in this first example, suggest. And now it's like step two, read the question really quick and identify the subject. So human activity played a role in the extinction of mammals about 11,000 years ago. Okay. So we have like these keywords like played, role, extinction, but we're not doing a detailed factual question here. Actually, we're dealing with an inference question. So we just need to understand the subject. And the subject here is human activity. Once you've determined that and recognized it, you want to read this paragraph, and then once you're finished reading, ask yourself what relationship does this text, this paragraph, have with human activity, which is the subject, right? So what is the connection here? What is the relationship here? How does this tie with this subject, human activity? Okay, let's see. And more importantly, let's read. Although the climate change at the end of the Pleistocene, warning trends had happened before, A period of massive extinction of large mammals like that, seen about 11,000 years ago, had not occurred during the previous 400,000 years, despite these changes. The only apparently significant difference in the Americas 11,000 years ago was the presence of human hunters of these large mammals. Was this coincidence or cause and effect? Okay, so based on what I read, I can kind of understand that the writer is suggesting that it could be. He's not saying 100%, but it could be a possibility that people were responsible for the extinction of these large mammals, okay? And now I need to select a choice that reflects that pretty much has the same meaning here. So choice A, climate changes that would have favored human population expansion occurred at the time of the extinction. So this is the wrong focus. No, this is not what I understood after reading that. That's not the point here the author's trying to make. Option B, the presence of human hunters had caused animal extinctions in other time periods. On the contrary, this is opposite of what I understood reading this paragraph, okay? So if you notice something like that, if they're kind of presenting opposite information, because here they're focusing on other time periods, not 11,000 years ago, well, that's obviously incorrect. That's not what I understood here. Choice C or option C, there was a pattern of climate change earlier than 11,000 years ago that had not caused animal extinctions. So what do you think about this one? This is the answer, because here they're just kind of expressing it in a different way. They just paraphrased it. There was a pattern of climate change earlier, right? Prior to 11,000 years ago, like before 11,000 years ago, that didn't cause, animal extinctions. So yeah, we kind of understand that maybe this has nothing to do with climate change. Maybe the animal extinctions were due to human presence, right? Human hunters. So that makes sense. That's the author's central point here, their main argument. Now just read choice D, option D, just to be safe, because these are tricky question types. They could be really challenging. Harmful climate changes 11,000 years ago would have required humans to hunt large numbers of animals for food. No, that's not what they explained here. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So, okay, which of the following statements about Larry Agenbroad's work is implied in the discussion in paragraph 5? So remember, step 1, you need to know whether this is an inference question. How do we know that? By recognizing or identifying the magical words. Imply, infer, suggest. Here we have implied, so we know for sure we're dealing with an inference question. Step 2, what was that? Do you guys remember? So what is the subject here? Larry Agenbroad's work. So you want to scan that in the text. All right, so many scholars continue to support this scenario. Okay, so this is a more challenging inference question. So to be able to really understand this one, you need to know what this scenario was referring to. And in this case, since we're on question 8, they already discussed this in question 7, maybe question 6. So I'll just spoil this really quick. So in the previous paragraph, they had like a question about this paragraph. And here they said researchers, scientists ran a model. So they were dealing with this, they were using a computer model. They kind of had this simulation, the scenario, to try to figure out whether humans were the main factor that caused, these big game animals, these megafauna, to be wiped out, right? To become extinct. And then they came up with, this kind of statistical information, these figures to do that. So here, many scholars continue to support this. To give an example of a scholar who did support this scenario. So for example, pay attention to transition words. They can help you, not hurt you. Geologist Larry Agenbroad has mapped the locations of dated clovis sites alongside the distribution of dated sites where the remains of woolly mammoths have been found in both archaeological and purely paleontological contexts. Oh, so verbose, so wordy. These distributions show remarkable synchronicity. So if we didn't know what that means, they've kind of already defined it here for us. Occurrence at the same time. So based on my understanding, I can realize that Larry Agenbroad, that was our subject. So he's trying to provide proof or evidence or some kind of clue that this scenario is real, that maybe perhaps humans did, wipe out these animals. Okay, so which of these reflects that? Reflects our understanding. Aginbrod showed that Mosiman and Martin's estimates of the amount of time needed to drive big game to extinction were correct. This was just a scenario, guys, okay? We don't know for certain, for fact, that this did happen. So, when you run into extreme language like "we're correct," be cautious, be wary of this. So, yeah, choice A is not the right answer. It's too extreme. They use extreme language, extreme words. Aginbrod's maps were the first to indicate the ages of the clovicides. Again, first, did they actually mention that? He was the first to do so? No. Again, that's extreme language. These are usually wrong, so just be aware of that. So eliminate B. Now we're down to C and D. So Aginbrod, reinforced the idea. So he's kind of encouraging this idea. He's supporting this idea that humans could have caused the extinctions. So is that true? Yeah, because he gave an example. He mapped some specific locations of clovis sites, and there they found like remains of woolly mammoths. So what are remains? Like the skeletons, the bones, right? The fossils of these, amazing creatures. Okay, so C is right, but use process of elimination to weed out D. Just make sure it is indeed incorrect. Aginbrod's studies of woolly mammoths led to his discovery of clovis sites. So they're just taking words from this text and just putting it here, but this doesn't make sense, and that's not what they explained there. So be careful. This was just a wordplay trap, and that's not what we understood from reading this. So yeah, C was the correct answer here. Let's look at one last one. So, okay. Paragraph 7 suggests that, so again, step 1, you need to know whether you're dealing with an inference question in the first place. We are, because we have the magical word suggest. If suggest is not there, there could be implies, infers, right? Now, step 2, identify, the subject. Donald Grayson believes which of the following about the remains at clovicides and megafaunal extinctions. So we have a bunch of words here, but I believe Donald Grayson is our subject, so keep that in mind. Okay, so you're reading the paragraph. Though Martin claims, so be careful, guys. Martin is not our subject. It was Donald Grayson, so don't mix them up. It happens a lot. It happens all the time with test takers, so be really precise. Claims a lack of evidence actually supports his model. Okay, so Martin's argument, theory, whatever, his claim, there's a little bit of information here that can help us basically understand it. So anytime you notice M dashes, these kind of big wide dashes, these are kind of like parentheses, and they usually function to give you extra information that supports the previous sentence here. So the evidence is sparse. Whose evidence? Like Martin's, right? It's limited, or it's weak, inconclusive, right? Because the spread of humans and extinction of animals occurred so quickly. Okay, that's his logic, right? That's his rationale. Because this spread of humans and extinction of animals occurred so fast, that's why we don't have enough fossils to support this data. But here they say this argument seems weak. Why is that? So keep reading. And how could we ever disprove it? As archaeologist Donald Grayson points out, so that's our guy. That is our subject. We remember that from the question. So he mentions in other cases where extinction resulted from the quick spread of human hunters, and then here again, there's another M dash that has this extra information that kind of makes it clear what Grayson was talking about. For example, so transition words can help you. They won't hurt you. Just pay attention to that. The extinction of the moa. If you don't know what moa means, don't worry. They'll kind of explain it right after. The large flightless bird of New Zealand. So it's kind of like a bird similar to our modern ostriches, right? Maybe it's the ancestors of the ostrich. Who knows? Who cares? Archaeological evidence in the form of remains is abundant. So when it came to this bird, when they discovered it at its site, or some different sites, they realized, oh my God, oh my gosh, we found tons of fossils, tons of remains of this bird, right? Tons of moa skeletons all over the place. So based on this, I think I already have enough understanding of Grayson's point. And now look at the answer options here. Now, if you feel like you need to read more to really know what's going on, feel free. But there's a common misconception that you have to read the entire paragraph to, answer an inference question. That's not necessarily true. It's not always the case. So you only read what you need. Always remember that expression, guys, okay? All right, so the rapid rate of the spread of humans explains why the extinctions also occurred at a rapid rate. No, that's not what I understood when I was reading Grayson's point there, so no. It doesn't corroborate with that. The lack of evidence of human-caused extinctions is not surprising in view of the speed and understanding the speed with which the extinctions occurred. Actually, this is what Martin claimed, so it's kind of like different information. No, so that's not the right answer. It's not about Donald Grayson's point of view. It is likely that more evidence will be found as dating methods improve. I didn't encounter that anywhere. That's definitely wrong. If humans did contribute to the extinction, so assuming they did cause these mighty animals to be wiped out, well, much more evidence of that would have been found by now. So does this support or reinforce what Donald Grayson believes? Yeah, it does. Because he used, the example of the moa to prove his point. He said when they realized the moa was extinct, when they just examined and explored the sites that contained, moa fossils, moa remains, they realized there was an abundant amount of moa. So lots of them, lots of their skeletons, their fossils remains, in those sites. So based on that, that supports, option choice answer D. So guys, if you liked this video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe it, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.